Please go to the diary room.
Every single season and learn everything that there is to know about everybody.
Please make your way to the diary room.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Diary Room. I am so freaking excited for today's episode. I'm not even going to make you wait too much longer. I am Matt. I'm here with Aman. Aman, what's up?
I'm super excited too. I agree. Let's not make it wait. Let's not bury the lead. Okay.
Let's not even get 60 seconds into this episode without introducing our guest. It is somebody that we are both so excited to talk to. Somebody who I have the distinct honor of. The first ever time I recorded a podcast was with this man, and that was amongst the multiple years I had the pleasure of listening to him host the Reality TV RHAPpy Hour and so much other coverage related to Big Brother and more over on RHAP. Returning to the podcast microphone, it is JP Jordan Parhar. How are you?
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's a new year, 2025. It feels really weird being in front of a microphone again. I'm not going to lie, but I'm happy to be here. I was flattered when you asked me to come on. I did not think I was a desired guest to be on podcasts anymore, but here we are. I think nearly 7 years after I last recorded the Reality TV RHAPpy Hour.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been so long. So let's do this thing. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
Look, just like when you played Big Brother, you're wrong about about you not wanting to be a desired guest. And I'm going to make those jabs at you all the time. JP is a really good friend, and I'm very happy to have him back here. It's been too long, and you know, things in your personal life are going great. You stepped away from the reality TV scene, making a decision that a lot of other people really should consider making at times. And I know it's been good for you, but we're happy to have you back for a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it's one of the best decisions I ever made. But I'm happy to pop my head in once in a while, dip my toes in the water, and then just kind of go back into my cave of reality away from reality TV.
Right. No, I appreciate that a lot because, like, yeah, and I agree with you, Matt. I feel like it can get really easy to get sucked into this genre and into all of the stuff that comes along with it, especially if it's part of, like, you know, a side hustle for you, or if it's part of your main career being a podcaster. Like, you kind of have to be in the know, and it can be very, very exhausting. And so, like, Jordan, I thought about you like a couple of years ago when I was just like super disillusioned with Big Brother, and I thought about the post that you had made when you were announcing that you were stepping away, and I was like, you know what, I get it now. Like, this is a lot. This is a lot, and this is coming from someone who's never even been on any of the shows. So it's like, I know that it can be very overwhelming, but I'm also super excited that you're here. It's like full circle for me because you're one of the first people that I ever podcasted in any official capacity with when it comes to Big Brother. So, and you made everything so seamless. You made everybody feel so welcome. So I'm just so happy that you are back here 7 years later on my podcast, or our podcast rather. And it's so exciting. I'm so happy.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy to be here, Amon, and thank you for the kind words. And I was thinking about you too, and before starting, and I just thought, man, like, this guy was on So You Think You Can Podcast, and now look at him, he's flourishing. He's got his own show. Matt's got his own show. I mean, it's crazy what time what can happen over time, right? And I'm just proud of you guys. Seems like you got a really good thing going. I saw you had a lot of 5-star reviews on Spotify. I was like, there we go, those are my boys. They're doing well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. So, and yeah, I mean, in regards to the post thing, I think unless you're on this side of it, you're not going to understand. And I'm glad that I'm not glad that you've had experienced some burnout type of feelings, but I'm also glad that you kind of get to see it a little bit and understand that, yeah, it can be a lot. And for some people, they're made for that. And for me, I wasn't, and that's okay. And I'm perfectly happy to not be in this space anymore. But that also really makes it extra special when I get an opportunity like this. So I'm really excited to be here today, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was telling you before we got on that I've been revisiting some of the old podcasts because I've been rewatching a lot of seasons, and especially for BBCAN. I don't remember if it was like as part of the conversation back then. It certainly grew to be a lot, but I think it already was when you were podcasting, of how different the feeds were versus the episodes. There's so much filler content on some of the BBCAN episodes. So when you want to revisit those seasons and remember exactly what happened, the podcasts are super crucial to a lot of BBCAN seasons. So just to get to go back and see you hosting all of those roundtables with some baby faces of the people who are still podcasting today about the show, just such an experience and so much fun. I mean, again, it's I'm very happy for you where you are today, but we do miss you, and we're happy to have you back here to get into a little bit of Big Brother discussion, which you haven't done in a while. So, a lot of people come on here worried about who they may remember, may not remember. You have all the grace in the world for whatever you do or don't remember today. Hopefully we just get 6 people from your season and it's the easiest task in the world, but whatever happens, we're gonna have fun.
Okay, sounds great. I'm excited, and if not, like maybe I'll get lucky and the person was on the Traders or something as well, and then I remember them a little bit more recently. That's a show that I still do watch. So so we'll see. It's gonna be fun. My fingers are crossed that I get at least one person that I played with, because I think that would be super fun.
You could get yourself. Aman, we're still waiting for the day that a former player comes on and gets themselves. Jordan Parhar's name is on the wheel today.
It is on the wheel, and it's a little bit more likely than I would say some of the other alumni we've had so far. It was. So, it could happen. I'm not mad about it if it does.
But and Jordan, I want to talk about your wheel here, because your wheel is a little bit different than so because we've had people on that maybe just haven't seen the most amount of seasons or whatever. Your wheel, because you haven't been watching Big Brother in recent years all the time, or just to talk through the seasons that you were the most familiar with. That's kind of what we pulled together today. So I want to talk about the seasons that you have here, and it's as far as US goes, 8, 10, and 14 are the ones that we're looking at for US. Those all stick out a lot for you from just watching it the first time around?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I hate to, I've said this when I've been on podcasts over the past few years, the handful of times I've been on, but I would say prior to being a contestant on the show, I was very diehard into watching all the seasons, understanding everything. I think now I'm kind of like, I don't know if you remember, but it stands out very vividly to me during Big Brother Canada 2. Sabrina Abate kept talking about how she was a super fan. But then there was this one time in which Rachel Riley came on the show, and I think she was part of the sideshow or something. And she said hi to the house guests. And so then Sabrina started freaking out, and then she kept saying, "Oh, how's Brandon doing? How's Brandon doing? I'm such a big super fan." I feel like I'm that level of super fan now I feel like that's a cringe term to use to describe somebody, but I would just say for myself, like I know more about Big Brother than the average civilian walking around, but I have definitely pushed a lot out of my brain. And I feel like 10 and 14, I was just such a big Dan Giesling fan. So those I've just seen, I don't know how many times, but enough times where it's really stuck with me. So that's why I chose those. I feel like those are probably pretty popular with the casuals as well, unfortunately, but here we are. And then Big Brother 8, Eric Stein was my favorite. He is my favorite player of all time. I love Eric. Eric's a friend. So he's somebody that I always look up to as a kid. And so I watched that season many, many times. So those 3 in particular on the US side stood out to me the most. There's definitely a couple others I could have picked, but I just feel like so much time has passed. I haven't seen them more than twice. You probably don't want me talking about seasons where I don't recall.
And look,
cast, so
completely understandable. And as a reminder to all of our guests, we kind of frequently have these reminders to our listeners. Like, this is not a super fan quiz show. Like, we are not here to catch anybody. We are not here to test anybody's knowledge. We are here to just have a good time, go with what we remember and make our decisions from that. So yeah, you're in good hands here, Jordan. No no need to be anxious or nervous at all about anything.
And look, if somebody wants to come on and give us only a couple seasons and ensure their chances of pulling Dan Giesling are a little higher, then that's allowed too. He has not come up yet. Definitely could be the day today with
okay.
with the smaller wheel. And then as far as BB Can
Yeah.
goes, of course you were on season 3. For those who don't know, seasons 1 and 2 you were watching before you got on, and then I think I convinced you to put 4 and 5 on because I know that you podcast about them. So I was like, we could find the knowledge somewhere deep within there. So
yeah, definitely for 4 and 5. I mean, yeah, it wasn't the most enjoyable watching experience for me, but 1, 2, and 3, I mean, I feel like I know like the back of my hand. So hopefully some of those earlier BB Can seasons get pulled here, but we'll find out.
we'll see.
Yes.
I was recently rewatching the finale of 5, and watching the final moments after Kevin wins and you and Peely and Ashley are in the crowd screaming, crying, losing your minds for him were quite the moments to see again. It's very heartwarming. So
Yeah, no, it's May 18th, 2017. I'll never forget
Look
the
at that.
date. It was just like, that was one of the best days of my life, honestly, to see him win. I don't want to get into it too much and make this a Kevin Martin love session, but that was just so satisfying to see that guy win and all the blood, sweat, and tears he poured in. And I was so grateful to be there for that special moment. That's the highlight of all of Big Brother for me.
I believe you. I know that to be the case. I remember how excited everybody was around that time for sure. One last thing before we get to your wheel here, JP, is looking at BB Can 3 season very well. I just wanted to go over the players that have come up so far and just talk through with you who has advanced and won their matchup going on to round 2 and who has not. 4 players have come up so far. 2 that I think are not surprising that they won a matchup to go to the next round for sure. Sarah and Brittany both have been pulled and both advanced. No surprise, right?
No surprise.
No. And yeah, no, those were pretty simple. I don't remember who they were matched up against, but not important at the moment. And then one person that did not advance to the next round, I actually texted you after this happened. Greg did not advance to round
Yes,
2.
you did. Oh, poor Greg. I love Greg.
Ginger Ninja, baby.
That was against Jose, right? Amon.
It was against Jose because you told me,
texted
Matt.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
you did, and I was offended that Greg lost to Jose. Come on, Greg. Greg was, he was scheming a little bit. He had a little bit of alliance going. It was a secret alliance. I mean, it didn't go anywhere, but I feel like Jose, unless Jose has played again, I mean, I feel like Jose's time on, if we're just looking at Big Brother, I feel like Greg should be given some consideration. So, I mean, it's fair. I'll accept it. But
it was definitely one of those impact picks, legacy picks, more so than just strictly, strategy. But I mean,
that was tough because I think looking back, there've been picks before that I've had regrets on. That is probably one of them. I think I really that one and Raven Raven going through to the next round. But it's just the fact that Greg's game blew up as big as it did, where Jose's game didn't blow up. It was just bad. But Greg's game, started kind of strong and then completely blew up. And that's what you remember more so is how it ended rather than like the couple of weeks where at least he did have an alliance where Jose never did. So, but that's besides the point. So
Cindy went through above Keith Henderson from BB13. That's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, Cindy is much better than Keith.
Which was
much better than Keith. You know what? And I that's not a name that has come up for me in a very long time, and I don't need to get into details really, but I just want to say like she's a better than average player. I would say. I think she did. I think she's a better than average player. And I think that she would probably beat most people. So I'm glad she beat Keith because Keith was not very good.
Yeah, it's tough for a player like Cindy who has been like evicted so many times, especially in your season, almost every time that it was available to happen. But we don't have to get into too much of that.
No, that's okay. I think she would really benefit, honestly, if if Big Brother Canada was like the challenge, I think if she had like 4 or 5 goes at it, I think she really would have figured it out. I think, and you could kind of see that with 5. With 5, she really was playing an amazing game and then kind of just got influenced in the wrong direction. And that's kind of what ended up taking her out at the end. But yeah, we'll see if she comes up in the wheel today. But I think she probably, I don't know if she's properly rated. I feel like people either really say she's the greatest or she's not very good, where I think the reality is probably somewhere in the middle.
Sure. So without further ado, let's get up to this wheel. And again, I have to shuffle it a little bit. Right now, it's in such chronological order. Shuffle, share screen. Let's do this. And let's pull up.
That's Matt rigging right now.
Shuffling, not rigging, you jerk. So JP, your wheel here. We see the names. We don't usually see the names because these are your
I love
best
this actually.
Plus 2 that I made you have of BBCAN 45. Not actually. So we're gonna spin the wheel for anyone new around here. We're gonna spin, get a name. We're gonna talk about them. Spin again, get them an opponent, and 3 times in this episode we'll do that. Send 3 players to the next round. We all ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Let's rock and roll. Let's do it.
All right. First player up today. The wheel for Jordan Parhar is.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Going to be. It looks like BBCAN.
Who is it?
Danielle Alexander.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So, for those who don't remember, this is our second boot of Big Brother Canada season 1.
Yeah, she was.
So, well, for JP here, I'm just we are going to read a little bit of a blurb from the BB Wiki about Danielle to remind us all of what happened in her game, and then we'll do some discussion here on Danielle.
Good.
So, Aman, what do we have on Danielle?
Danielle played her 2 weeks in the house on the bottom along with Gary and Suzette. Along with this, Danielle ended up forming a rivalry with Jillian. After volunteering to go on the block as a pawn in week 2, Danielle was evicted by a vote of 8-3, placing 14th.
There we go.
Yeah.
JP, you said these first couple seasons of BBCAN are where you have your core memories. Is it as early as Danielle, the second boot?
I remember Danielle going home. I remember Danielle. She is one of the few people from the first 2 seasons of the show before I played that I have never met in person. So I don't have any bias here in terms of my thoughts, but I would say with Danielle, I did not, in terms of what I remember, she was not the best player, bless her heart. I think she made some great friends. I think that's awesome. I think she was there to maybe have a good time. I don't know if she was an applicant for the show versus a recruit. I don't even know back in that first season what the situation was, but I just remember watching her and thinking, I don't know if she knows what she signed up for. Maybe she watched a season of Jeff and Jordan at some point on Big Brother 13 and enjoyed, because that was Big Brother Canada 1 that kind of came out around that era. Yeah. So, I mean, seemed like a really nice person, but not the best Big Brother player.
She had a crush on Emmett.
Yeah.
And Jillian, right, is the HOH that takes her out. So Jillian, Emmett, Danielle, Emmett, there was something going on with these nominations.
Yeah. I think it was a pretty one-sided connection with Emmett for her, unfortunately.
And she was very shocked to have been going out, which just really shows just how out of it she actually was. And, she kind of fell victim to the Quattro Alliance. I remember them feeling like, they didn't want a girls thing to start brewing up. And so it was just, once she put herself up there, they were like, well, let's just go ahead and nip it in the bud right now and get her out. I don't think that she entirely knew what type of show she was on. I think that it was just, any early season of Big Brother, you have some people that are like there, that are like cutthroat, there to win the game. And they have a few people that are like, oh, this is like a cool experience to have. I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to talk to everybody and I'm going to win. And I feel like she was in that latter category and didn't work.
Yeah, she was also close to Gary, and Gary was certainly a big figure in the BBCAN one house in general, let alone in the early couple of weeks. You're looking at who's kind of garnering attention that early on, and I think her closeness to Gary was kind of not winning her any favors with the rest of the house. So did Aman, you might have said this in the blurb. She was up against Danielle, right? Is that the story here?
Yeah.
It was Neil and Gary that go on the block at first from Jillian, which is like, really, those two? Come on, Jillian. And then when Gary wins the veto, it's Anil and Danielle, where Danielle gets a couple of votes that go to evict Anil from Gary, from Tala, and from Suzette. But obviously, those are not exactly the people in the core group of the house. You guys mentioned Quattro and Peter Brown and all of the people that were kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes, and Danielle just didn't fit in there. So
no, not at all. Not at all.
But I'm fascinated by the fact that, Jordan, you say you haven't met her, because not to say that I would think you've met everybody from around the time that you were, more involved, but I would have thought almost everybody.
Yeah, almost everybody. It's a very small number of people from those first few seasons. She's one. I think just by the time 3 rolled around, I think she was kind of, hey, I was the second boot. What am I doing here? I don't really need to keep going to these finales, which is fair. She's one. I'm trying to think who I have not met from season 1. It would have been Kat, Danielle, and Tom Plant. I was really hoping to meet Tom. Tom was one of my ironic favorite players. I love Tom, but I never met Tom, and I've chatted on Facebook, I think, but
there we go.
But other than that, though, I think I've met everybody from the first. Oh, and then Nate from Big Brother Canada 2, who was locked in the room. Yes, legendary Nate. I never met Nate, even though I don't know if he still lives. He lived in Burnaby, British Columbia, which is 10 minutes from where I'm currently recording this podcast.
Okay,
so he might be in my neighborhood somewhere. I don't know.
No, I was going to say maybe he'll come up today. He's not on the wheel. He'll have to have stepped inside the house in order to.
That's fair.
And also apologies to the people watching us here on YouTube that did not have the player card up right away. Just so distracted with how excited I am for JP to be here that I'm not on my game right now to get Danielle's picture up on the screen. So this is Danielle. She's not going to be up on the screen much longer because she was only in the house for, as you can see, 15 days. Evicted, second on the season. Not the most memorable player, not the best player, and although she wasn't very good, Aman, I will venture to say she's not the worst. She's probably,
not the worst.
In the conversation,
at least she had a few people that she was in good with. It wasn't exactly like a unanimous vote. She had her supporters, but she was very blindsided. Didn't hug anybody. Walked out crying like it was. She had a time. Yeah.
So
I'm with them on there too. The underrated piece here, I think that people might forget about Danielle, is she did have a few people vote in her favor, which if you are truly, truly atrocious at the game, you're not going to be getting any votes whatsoever. So while she does lose some points for lack of self-awareness, at least she had a few people on her side.
Yeah. So like I said, she won't be on the screen much longer here. We're going to go pull up the wheel and get to our next player here. But JP, the fun part about this whole project is that while Danielle is not the most memorable player, she's maybe not the best player, she could still win this matchup because there are so many actively terrible Big Brother players on the wheel here. I don't know. This is not a bad wheel as far as players are concerned. So I don't have the highest hopes for her, but we'll see. Are we ready?
Yes, ready. Let it rip, baby.
All right, let's get Danielle versus Jordan Parhar. Let's get this through.
Okay. Give me a matchup I can win.
Wait.
Oh, I'm so upset.
My heart is
Oh.
beating so fast. It's not even funny. For those who are not watching us on video, that was so close to being Jordan Parhar. I think
Would have been a first. Would have been a diary room first, baby.
I think it was 2 spots away. But we did ultimately land here on Demetres from BBCAN-5. JP, somebody who was in direct opposition with your boy Kevin Martin all throughout the entire season there.
Yeah, somebody I wish was not in direct opposition of my boy Kevin Martin because he was a pretty darn good player. From what I remember, I think he did a phenomenal job, played an excellent game. I was really surprised, and I forgive me because I didn't follow anything after Big Brother Canada 5, but I'm shocked that they did. I mean, maybe they asked him at some point and he said no, but I just assumed he would have been back in some capacity at some point just because he played such a strong game and he did so well. But yeah, there's not many matchups I think he would, in terms of Big Brother Canada players, there's not many people I think he would lose against.
Yeah, just to speculate on that, I wonder if it's straight up just because him and Ika had so much success doing content together. Demetres was so, just on YouTube and whatnot, and the channels that they were making content online. Demetres seems very successful in his career, and just like life has gone so well for the two of them. Recently got out getting married, so even if they did call, I wonder if it was like, well, do I really want to go and spend another, couple months, especially away from Ika? Those two are so in love. But let's talk about Demetres. Aman, what do we have from the Wikia blurb?
Yes, Demetres began the game with a target on his back after Cameron nominated him alongside Mark. Demetres was barely able to survive the 7-6 eviction vote as he was only saved with help from Cassandra. And Demetres was able to stay safe for the next few weeks through his showmance with Ika and his comp wins. He was able to make it to the final 3 where Kevin became the final HOH and cast the sole vote to evict him for being a huge threat to win the game, resulting in Demetres placing 3rd.
Well, you know what also I just realized? Mark recently came up one episode ago. Was it 2 episodes ago?
Was it with Jacob? I think it was. I can't remember.
It was with no, it was literally the last episode with Maggie.
Oh, Maggie, duh, of course.
Yeah, literally 1 episode ago. Mark, who was on the block next to Demetres in week 1 of BBCAN-5, one of these 2 guys was going to go home first. And after Mark did not go through, here we have Demetres, who, as JP's saying, and as I think anybody who watched the season knows, this man was a force in his season, a huge force in the story of him and Ika navigating through BBCAN-5, Demetres versus Kevin, the trading back and forth of comp wins. Aman, it was a legendary run that just came down to one final competition between the 2 of them that decided who was going to win.
Yeah, he was a force. But I think the one thing against him is that I don't know if he does well without Ika, and vice versa. Even though we all consider Ika to be one of the queens of Canadian Big Brother, I don't know if Ika does as well without him. The 2 of them together were just, it was a soap opera. Like every week, it was like, can they make it? Can they make it? Can they make it? When they survived that triple eviction, it was like, I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget just those spoilers coming out and they had made it through. But yeah, when it came to Demetres, he definitely was sort of like the yin to Ika's yang, sort of like was able to sort of calm her down in positions where they were sort of like, or her specifically, were at odds with a bunch of the other people in the house. And then, as far as the comp wins, he had those to keep them safe and back it up. So I think there definitely is like a nice, well-roundedness to his game. I think where he falls short is that, yes, his best ally in Ika was what made him excel in the game, but I think it's also what held him back from having proper relationships with other people in the house. No one disliked Demetres, but I don't know if he had deep connections in the way that he should have. With that being said, I think if it's Ika and Demetres in the end, I think Demetres beats Ika.
Oh, it's not even close. It's not even close. He
Ika.
wins. Yeah.
We love Ika, but
He would have won. Yeah, he would have won easily.
I mean, you hear like
yeah.
the lapdog comments that people make about him regarding Ika, saying that he's her lapdog throughout the season, but they still, the comp wins and a lot of the jury's perception of Ika. Yeah.
Well, yeah, just look at the stats. I mean, he won 7 competitions. He was nominated 5 times, and he still made it to 3rd place. I just feel like there are not many players in the history of the Canadian game, at least from my time watching the show. And I'm sure maybe there, who knows who came after Demetres, but just in that early era, hard to argue with that type of performance. I think the comments too about him, the lapdog thing and whatnot, if he would have been by himself, it would have been really interesting to watch, to see how he would do. Like, I'm thinking, for example, about somebody like Bruno. I think Bruno, if Ika wasn't there, if Demetres wasn't locked into that side and locked into being with her, he easily could have worked with some more of the guys in the house. I think his options would have been a lot more open. He's also a very charismatic guy. Like, I've met him in person, really nice guy, very confident. I think if you put him into a random season, he'd do extremely, extremely well. But I do think, them working together was a huge advantage, but it could say a blessing and a curse. But he might be the rare kind of player that could succeed in a pairing like that, and also on his own.
JP, do you have memories of like how specifically, I guess, challenging it might have been for you to be podcasting at the time while Kevin was on this run, having this guy be like, again, the direct opposition to Kevin getting his win?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I won't lie. It was very tough. I mean, I think there was a lot of noise at the time about people saying, oh, JP, he's retiring, he's quitting because he couldn't handle, Netta getting voted out, or his friends, or this comments on all this stuff. And I mean, it was hard for me to try to keep things balanced. I think the biggest thing, I was also so young at the time too. I think, thinking about that in hindsight, if I were to be podcasting now about it, it would still have been difficult. But I think I would have been something I've been able to pick up in it's almost been a decade since then. In that time, is just focusing more on the opinions and thoughts and beliefs of people that are close to me and myself, and just having more confidence in myself. So it was really hard to turn out a lot of the comments and the feedback from people, because no matter what I said or what I did, like, I tried to like really overcompensate at some points to try to be as unbiased as possible. But no matter what you do, especially when you're podcasting about something like Big Brother, in which the fans can get so tribal and so ingrained in supporting their people, you're always going to be upsetting certain individuals. So, I mean, it was a hard thing to do. But I think the harder thing, honestly, was, as a fan watching it and rooting for Kevin and having so much invested in his success. And then every single week, just having, every time he was not HOH, I had to worry about Demetres coming through and winning and taking control back away from him. And it was hard. It was so hard. Not the hardest part. There was another player who made certain comments towards my boy Kevin that hurt me a little bit more. I mean, this was just more so kind of like, the way I would put it is in sports almost. If you're a fan of a really excellent team, and then they're your rival in the same division, they're also really strong, and it makes it really hard. To put it in football terms, would be kind of like the AFC North. You always got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens. They're always so good every season. It's kind of a little bit like that, trading blows back and forth. It was tough. It was exhilarating, but I feel very grateful that Kevin came out on top, because it was that close.
I was recently rewatching the veto ceremony where Kevin is going to take Ika off the block, final 5, right? And the part that I forget about all of that is after the ceremony, when Ika runs up to Kevin's HOH room, because her and Demetres had destroyed the room. They took his clothes out. They took they took one of Kevin's stuffed animals and had it like
they hung it
from the ceiling.
They hung it.
They ruined that man's room, and Ika felt so silly and bad afterwards that watching her run upstairs and put the room back together and say like, Kevin, do not go in there. Let me clean up first was very funny. Look, they ended the season. Everybody was fine. Everybody, shook hands, said it was a game and seemed to move on. Kevin got his money. Demetres and Ika got each other and, some money and whatnot along the way. So I think all worked out. But Demetres is a very strong player. Even from like the early part of the game, you have where he's certainly getting some influence from some of the vets who want to, work with him, like Cassandra and Ika, that think that he has potential. And you get in like the first week of the game is when he's on the block against Mark and he tries this strategy of telling the whole house that he's going after Dylan. And he tells Dylan, from day one, you and I just didn't click. And I think that, I may have to target you in this game or something like that. And Dylan's like, what the hell? And it works. I mean, that's the only reason why it works, but he stays on a 7-6 vote, which was incredibly close. And then he just goes on to get pulled into the vets group, which is going to completely eat itself with Cassandra and Gary and Dallas. And he is in with them. He's in with the core of that group that are not going after him because they're going after other vets. He sticks around. They've got Dre, they've got William. They make a far run. And, next thing you know, all he has to do is win one comp a week, essentially, to keep himself safe, win one more comp in the final 3. And he's a Big Brother Canada winner. So that's Demetres.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think I agree with what you said earlier, JP. I think he played a solid game that, maybe even without Ika, maybe there is something that, there's like substance there. I do think, we have to give a lot of credit to Ika because she was like the main one pushing for him to survive against Mark in the first week. But I think just based off of his personality, again, no one really had anything bad to say about him except maybe Netta, unfortunately. But that was by proxy because of Ika. Like everyone liked him. He was nice, and for him to win 5 HOHs and also be nominated 5 times. So it's like he just traded winning on the block, and it's like you survived all those damn nominations. Like, hey, it's a solid game. And it was really fun to watch.
Let's make this official here. JP, in the battle of Demetres versus Danielle Alexander, we got to send one of these players through to the next round. Cast the first vote here.
We will send Demetres to the next round.
All right. It's a tough call, but someone has to make it. Amon?
I am voting to evict Danielle. Sorry, girl.
She's probably fine. I don't think she's thought about Big Brother in probably much longer than JP hasn't. So
yes.
So Danielle will be evicted here to 3-0 vote with Demetres moving on to the next round as he should. Let's get this wheel back up for matchup number 2 here. Let's kick things off with spin number 1 here. Spin number 3, whatever you want to call it. Jordan Parhar.
If it happens, I'm gonna die.
Oh, I saw Paul Jackson.
Oh, we can talk about him instead. Oh, are we going back to
okay.
Big day for the BBCAN audience out there. Look, there are US names out here, as we mentioned earlier, and as you can probably see on the wheel, but we're going to stick to BBCAN for now, and we're going to go back to BBCAN 1 and talk about the milkman Emmett.
Yes, our northern brothers and sisters are singing and rejoice.
Yeah, we just spent last episode. Oh, sorry.
I'm just saying we got a nice chunk of BBCAN, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we just said last week maybe we'll do like a whole month of trying to put our thumb on the scale for BBCAN, but we just needed to wait 1 week.
There we go.
Let's talk about Emmett. Amon, what's the Emmett blurb all about?
All right, Emmett. At the start of the game, Emmett joined the Quattro Alliance alongside with Tom, Alec, and Peter. He also formed a showmance with Jillian. He also proved to be a physical threat. He was briefly named HOH in week 4, but video evidence proved that along with 3 other house guests, he had cheated in the comp and his title was stripped from him. Later on, after Tom's eviction and Quattro had fallen apart, Emmett, along with Jillian, joined the East Coast Alliance with Andrew and Tala. After Gary returned at the final 5, Emmett made a deal with him. However, this would later be his undoing as Gary won the final HOH and evicted him.
JP, does anybody else come to mind other than Emmett if I ask for like who's the best player of Big Brother Canada 1?
Oh, Big Brother Canada 1, yeah, easily Emmett. Absolutely. In preparation for Big Brother Canada 5, Kevin and I sat down. We kind of created dossiers for potential players that were going to be in there. And Emmett was one we were just both convinced 100% he's going to be there. We talked a lot about, okay, what's the approach? What are we going to, what's it going to look like working with Emmett, all that kind of stuff. So I was blown away. We got the cast reveal and he was not in the mix. I think for a lot of people, Emmett is not just, again, at the time, as of 2017, I think for a lot of people, Emmett was the best Big Brother Canada player of all time. I wouldn't have pushed you back on that. I think he played a phenomenal game, similar to Demetres in a lot of ways, not as volatile, I guess, with the nominations, but just in terms of pure control, I think as well with him, what I really admired was he was a player that came in and didn't really have a huge fundamental knowledge of the game coming in, but he really learned as he went. He used advice from Dan, if I remember correctly. I remember just him having just such a strong social game, and he was somebody that people just really trusted. For me as well, something that I picked up later on after the fact, one of the producers that worked with me after I got voted out and lived in the jury house, she always sung Emmett's praises about how amazing of a person Emmett was, how he was so kind, how she just really, appreciated him. There are certain players, and maybe I'll save some of that depending on, because it sounds like we're getting a lot of BBCAN players, but there are certain players who that kind of stuff comes up over and over again. Emmett's one of those guys that I think was really, he's got that thing about him where people want to connect with him. They want to work with him. And he also was physically dominant. He had a good mind for the game. I don't think there is any argument. I know Jillian did excellent with the competitions. I know Jillian was the ultimate winner of the game. I know Gary had a big hand in things at the end, but you can't tell me that there's anybody better on that first season of BBCAN than Emmett Blois.
Yeah.
And I think he also one of the bigger, but I think we can all know and agree that he was great. I feel like we were pretty robbed of seeing that greatness come all the way to fruition and him getting his win, kind of in part to the fact that Gary comes back into the game knowing the jury's perception of the people that are still left in the game, where, there's just no world that when Gary wins that final HOH that he's ever going to take Emmett. It's like you wonder what it would look like in a world where Emmett could be, Emmett was good at persuading people, at manipulating people, in a low-key kind of Emmett way, where he would have been able to manipulate whoever won the final HOH comp to take him if he couldn't win his way there himself. But when you're trying to manipulate Gary into bringing you to the end, who was in the jury and knows that people don't like Jillian as much as they love and respect Emmett, there's just no chance that ever could happen. So, that's Big Brother, but also just tough.
It's tough. Here's the other thing though, too, Matt, is in hindsight, I think this is kind of crazy, and I don't know if this has ever been thrown out there, but I think it's not that I'm saying it's right. I think it would be completely wrong. If Emmett would have gone to the end with Gary, I still think Gary, unless there was a Topaz type of situation, I still think Gary would have won. There was an alliance within that jury to vote for one of them to win the game. And there were some very, very adamant people within that alliance that we are going to vote for one of these people to win the game. And that's something that I've heard from alumni. That's something that I heard from producers as well, was that Gary was supposed to win. They were going to go for him no matter who he was going against. So I kind of think if also too, Topaz was just had so much, she felt vindictive towards Jillian. I wonder if it's Emmett there, if she would have been a little more calm and she would have been able to correctly place her vote for Gary. So? And then Gary would have been the winner of Big Brother Canada 1. I really think that's what would have happened, which it probably sounds a little crazy for me to say, but just knowing the people that were there and having those
No, yeah.
conversations, I think that's
Yeah.
what would have happened. And it would have been, man, I don't know what the reaction would have been. I would have felt awful for Emmett. I mean, he would have won a little bit more money. It's second place versus third, and he's doing just fine in his life now. And after the fact, things worked out great for him. But yeah, I don't know, just with that jury and with Gary coming back, if there's any way for him to win that game.
Yeah, for me, because I agree with everything that both of you just said. I think Emmett, yeah, like now that I'm like really actually thinking about it, I haven't thought about Emmett's game in like hardcore in a while. And I think that he definitely deserves to be up there with a lot more of like who we consider to be Big Brother candidate greats. I mean, at least for me personally, I kind of always forget him, and maybe that's just by virtue of it being the first season, and sometimes recency biases in play here and everything. But he dominated his season. He did such a great job, and I feel like that one fatal flaw in deciding to get rid of Tala instead of Gary, because in his mind, because we see him when he makes his vote for Jillian, he's like, you only get one life in the Big Brother game, so therefore I'm going to vote for Jillian because Gary, like, you're not a factor here. I feel like he was banking on everyone else thinking the same way, and it's like, well, you probably could have still, like, whether it was Gary, whether it was Tala, you probably could have won either way. So get rid of Gary, get rid of the one that you're deeming as not a worthy person to being in the end, and that just undid everything that that he'd done the entire time. So it's like, it's so hard because like you play this dominant game and you have this one like thorn in your side that completely unravels everything, and that's like very hard to deal with. But outside of that, like, yeah, like he did such a good job. I mean, even when he wasn't, like, him and Jillian were trading HOHs half the time, and when either of them wasn't HOH, it was someone that was in the original alliance that was the HOH. Like, it was a very, very, very dominant first showing for the first season of Big Brother Canada. So yeah, definitely one of the greats. Just couldn't make it happen in the end.
Small note. Well, I love the casualness of his cast photo, just in a zip up hoodie and a t-shirt. Usually everybody's like a nice button up or like, I don't know, something. Just very chill out there.
Yeah, no cowboy hat for him either, because he
No.
wore that quite a bit
He
too.
did.
But
Yeah. I mean, I'll say, assuming Emmett goes through, I think we'll have some real in-depth conversations about him against other really good players as time goes on. Just considering the intricacies of his game, I think to like when Tom gets voted out, and then he kind of like is okay with Liza going, even though there was seemingly like this kind of couples group that was together early on, because he sees different paths for himself and Jillian to go forward in the game, where he's able to kind of like shift based on who's still in the house, what the current vibe of the house is, and the stronger group that he wanted to start working with, and even having the smaller pieces like an Andrew or a Tala to have by his side. It's like, well, he knew where he could cut his losses, and even if he was going to win all these comps, HOHs and vetoes, he just still had such a stranglehold on so many people in there on the game itself, that he one of the strongest third place games I think that you'll ever see, where you really, look at him like one of the most, one of the greatest players to not win Big Brother in general, but definitely for BBCAN. So
like, I feel bad for him, like, watching it, but like I was such a Gary stan back then. I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like get him out of here. Like, that's your own damn fault. But like, now that, years and years have gone by, I'm like, yeah, like, I mean, I see why he was so he was so buttered, because he really did the damn thing. He did such a good job.
yeah,
he did.
Now, obviously, this is going to be a scary wheel spin. When we have a good player that comes up, it's scary. Look, when Danielle Alexander comes up, it's like, all right, whatever happens next is fine. But a good player could come up here. Dan Giesling is one of how many spots on the wheel right now? Other BBCAN greats. So I'm nervous. I guess there's nothing.
Here we go.
Nothing to do but spin and find out. I don't want to look, but I'm going to do it anyway. All right, let's find an opponent for Emmett. Oh, no.
Bruno?
Oh, passing Dan Giesling.
Oh, here we go. Oh, no. Wow.
John Party.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Amon, is
So-
this the appropriate time to plug Patreon and the battle back vote?
Yeah. So if you want to protect one of your faves, honey, you might think about joining the
Oh,
Patreon.
I think we might have just found our next battle back winner in one of these two. JP, we do over on Patreon, we have every 5 episodes, all of the people who have lost, one person comes back. And sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it kind of, writes itself. And sometimes it's just like a mess of losers. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, but this might be the next battle back winner. We'll see. To not put the cart before the horse, let's have this conversation. Amon, remind us about John Party.
Yes, John. He worked alongside strategic player Netta, and they had a devastating alliance. Devastating? Do they mean dominating?
Probably.
Or devastating as in they just devastated
Devastating for Netta.
They had a devastating alliance that dominated the house and brought them all the way to the final 3. When John won the final HOH, he evicted his longtime ally Netta and won the game, sitting next to Sabrina in a 6-1 vote. John became the first Canadian house guest to win 6 comps, winning 3 HOHs and 3 POVs, and to never sit on the block on eviction night. John Party.
What a freaking day here. Demetres, Emmett, John,
all the big dogs.
JP, this is your fault. This is your wheel. John Party. All right. Well, we haven't dipped into BBCAN 2 talk, but it's another one of the seasons that you mentioned, before you went on the show yourself, that you had, pretty acute knowledge of, pretty aware of.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff I was saying about Emmett, I feel like John, from my perspective, was just one level above him. And that conversation I had where, I told you about that producer came into me and said, hey, Emmett, he just had all this influence. He was such a nice guy. I really liked him. John, anybody who meets my guy, Big JP, will tell you, like, he is so charismatic. Unlike maybe anybody I've ever met before.
Mm-hmm.
He's able to connect with all types of people. He makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room. I see why John managed to roll through that game. No problem. He played an excellent game. Sometimes I question, like, why are they doing this? Why don't people see this coming? And also similar to Emmett, he probably didn't have the most background knowledge coming into the game, but he just had those natural social capabilities and the strength in the comps to win. That combination really helped him just steamroll the entire game. And he had the knowledge to align himself with Netta and to take him to the end. So, I mean, I think personally, I know it's probably not popular, but I think that recent Traders season 2 winner, sorry, spoiler alert for people who watch Traders Canada, but Traders Canada season 2 winner Netta Kalantar is one of the best players, if not the best player of all time, in Big Brother Canada history. And I think the fact that John was able to pull one over on her, I mean, just really speaks volumes to his game and how well he played. So there are not many people on this list that I would put ahead of John. I just think he's an absolute all-star. Another player, and also that I'm surprised didn't come up on Big Brother Canada again, and surprised that one of these other shows didn't try to scoop him up, because he's quite the character.
Yeah, he stuck around BBCAN, of course, like to come back for whether it's hosting a comp, hosting a roundtable. They certainly, didn't lose his number by any means. They don't lose many people's numbers, but playing again obviously hasn't come up yet for John. But he is, I think, was for the longest time and may still be for some people. I'm not sure. Probably not at this point. Considered, the best winner in BBCAN history. I would say for me, I probably do give that to Dane from BBCAN 7 as, the years went on. But John still did, of course, alongside Netta, did a hell of an impressive, had an impressive resume as the season went on, kind of lurking in the shadows from early on in the game to completely controlling it to a point where people didn't even put it together in the second half of BBCAN 2, all the way down to, as you know, JP's laying out and reminding us when he ultimately makes the decision to cut Netta, seeing the forest for the trees and saying, you know, I want to win this game. Taking Netta to the end is not the way to do that, even though they had such a great friendship in there. It was not his best move, and he makes a decision that so many other Big Brother players before have not either been, I don't know if like, you know, brave enough to make, or just like people that have valued their friendships and relationships in Big Brother so much more than ultimately winning the game. I mean, a prime example is look at Cody in BB16. You know, the relationship he formed with Derek was so much more worthwhile to him to go to the end with Derek rather than making the cutthroat move to win. John made the cutthroat move and won the game for it. And you go on Big Brother to win. So you have to respect that, in addition to everything else that happens in the season.
For sure. I think yeah, I think because of the way that he's packaged, the way that he sounds, the way that he speaks, there's like this tendency to sort of like write him off as someone that you know, was just following Netta. But I think that it was a very symbiotic relationship between the two of them. I think that we get to see Netta sort of like have all of the cogs spinning, and John is the one that is saying, I agree with that one. I don't agree with that one. I agree with that one, but I don't agree with that one. And he learned just as much from her as I think that she benefited from him. And I think that, you know, when it came time to to make those crucial decisions, he was like, and he had no shame in it. He was like, look, girl, you gotta go. Like, it's been fun. It's been very, very fun, but I would like to win. And it's so funny because I'm looking at some of his like preseason content right now, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He said, you have to play off the house a little bit and go in with a game plan that is subject to change. Hopefully, I'll get it another physical competitor, and then he'll bring in a little showmance with a strong girl. And then we'd want to find someone who tops in the brain competitions and reel them in until I don't need them anymore. And instead of reeling in that strong physical competitor with a showmance, he did that instead and made it work for him. So it's just, you got to give credit to the guy. I do think that he is severely underrated. I think that everyone just sort of, again, just writes him off, but he's a student of the game just as much as the rest of them out there. And good on John.
John is the kind of guy that I think if you're watching from home or you're watching the feeds, it might not really translate. But if you spend just a little bit of time with him, you get it. You understand. Okay, like I went to so many different. I was at so many of these reality TV parties, charity events, things of that nature. John was always the guy that was the center of attention, the guy that people wanted to connect with, the guy that people looked up to. It was him always. And so I would put my money on him over a good majority of Big Brother Canada players if they were to play again. Like he is an outstanding player.
Would you think it's fair at all, JP, if I said, which I'm not 1,000% sure I feel this way, but I'm thinking through it, that when, you know, we're going to talk through Emmett versus John, I feel like Emmett might have had a tougher field of competitors than John did down at the end game. I mean, because John was working with his competition, where Emmett also kind of was within Jillian, but he would have beat Jillian where Netta would have beat John. So I don't know.
Yeah. I also don't know if I love Netta, and I would have voted for Netta, but I also don't know if Netta would have beat John. I think John might win that one as well. So from my perspective, just talking to people, I do agree with you that John had an easier field to go against at the end for sure, especially just with some of those physical competitions at the end. Like there was really, for me, never a doubt that once it got down to about 4, that John was going to be in the final 2. I felt that way, at least. I don't know about other people at the time, but whereas with Emmett, I mean, Jillian was just as good as he was in those competitions. They were working together, but yeah, that's certainly a factor, but I just feel like both of those, they're both excellent players, and it's really unfortunate that they both got pulled against each other.
This is so you didn't your last season of the US, we were talking before, that you like paid close attention to, was 18. You
Yes.
hear about Tyler Crispin as BB20 was airing?
Yeah, he was on the All-Star one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of that. Yes, he.
Armand's already like freaking out about the decision he's gonna have to make. We're still talking about Sean. If anybody's not watching the video, Armand's holding his face as if he has to decide right now. But just to bring Tyler back into it, JP, we had a Tyler Crispin versus Enzo Palumbo matchup, which I think to this point we probably both would say is the toughest matchup we've had so far. Tyler did go through, even though Enzo is, a pretty incredible social player. Enzo was since voted back into the competition, but I'm going to say for me, this one now takes the cake. Emmett versus John is definitely the two toughest players that we've had matched up against each other. I'm thinking that. Amon, do you disagree?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else right now. So it's.
You look stressed. Should I get rid of John so we can just watch him on stress a little bit closer?
Yeah. So we're each gonna vote here. So it's really gonna be 2-1, I feel, right? It's gonna be close.
It might. I would be surprised if it's not a 2-1 in some capacity. When it comes to John, I mean, so I think these guys were pretty similar. In a couple of ways, as far as like, they were both really good at pulling in the extras in the house. John had Arlie and Adele, that were like really close with him. And of course, when he cuts both of them, you expect it to maybe hurt those guys a bit, and it did. But I don't remember either of them walking away like super pissed off at John by any means in the way that you could have expected. But I feel like Emmett is in a somewhat similar boat. It's just that you have BBCAN-1 as such, like you were talking about, so bitter when they get to that jury house, and it's different people, different.
And that's the thing, Matt. Sorry to cut you off. No, I just feel like you're making the case for me as to why. Where I'm going to go is just looking at those two. Like John, he backstabbed all of those people, but they all sung his praises afterwards. I'm not in great touch with every single person on the BBCAN-2 cast, but they still sing. A lot of them still sing his praises now. Like Arlie, who he ruined his game. He ruined his dream. Like Arlie and John are best buddies still to this day, 10 years later. So whereas with Emmett, I mean, I don't know. Yes, he did a great job, but I almost wonder for Emmett, like, yes, at the end, he had a more difficult field, but at the beginning, I don't know. I feel like the BBCAN-1 group was not as strong as BBCAN-2. Not to say that not to take shots at them or say it's a weak cast. I just think BBCAN-2, there are some very good players that got voted out really early. Like, okay, you remove, your Kyle Shores and your Pop and Paul Jacksons, but there's, Sarah Miller's a very good player. She got voted out relatively early. Arlie's a very good player that I think people forget about. He is somebody that in another season, I think could have done a lot of damage. I think he's not everybody's cup of tea, but just the way his mind works, he is a brilliant guy. So you look at them, Adele, very social player. I mean, the whole overcoming the first five situation, which, the first five, again, not the strongest alliance, but to be able to kind of overcome that, I think that's hard. John was not in the majority alliance to begin the game. Emmett was in the majority really from the start. Yes, he was nominated at the very beginning. Suzette puts him up against Tom, but I think John, he had to overcome a lot. He separated his shoulder the second week into the game, and he made it seem like he was really injured the entire time going the whole way through. But then towards the end, he was feeling a little bit better. And then he was pretending like he was really hurt, but then suddenly he's winning all these competitions. So I don't know. For me,
I think I'm voting for John.
I'm gonna vote to evict Emmett. I think
Yeah.
John is for me the person I think that would need to advance, but it's hard. I mean, Emmett played a phenomenal game. He's a
Yeah.
great player, but I think the way I'm looking at this is not just, I mean, yes, looking at their individual games and how they play, but the way I'd like to do this kind of exercise is think, okay, if I were to put my money on one of these people in a random season, who do I like to advance and to do better? And I would choose John.
Amon, what are you thinking over there? We have, as much as I maybe can draw a line and say they're similar, they're, as JP's laying out, maybe they are a little bit more different than I'm thinking, where, one of them kind of overcame those obstacles like Jordan's talking about, and one of them maybe just dominated more of the season from out front. So maybe it comes down to what style you find a little bit more appealing to you and more trustworthy, as again, JP's saying, who you putting your money on? You are so stressed over there.
I think for the first time, I am voting against a winner. And only because, oh my God, people are going to drag me as always. I just feel like.
No, but like actually, if anyone's dragging for a matchup this hard.
No, nobody can. It's, yeah.
I think what I admired about Emmett's game, and it's so crazy, I really haven't thought so much about his game until today. I think that there was sort of like this, he wasn't very good, like, because I remember when I watched BBCAN 1, this is like when I was like a baby in my reality competition viewing days, and I automatically, my first inclination is to just vote against the person who's in power. Like, I want them gone. I don't like this person who just has all the power. Like, I just was rooting for the underdog entirely. And then as you get a little older, you start to, learn about strategy, and you learn about like what it actually takes to remain in power and be effectively in power. And when I think about Emmett's game, he was effectively in power. And it wasn't in like a mean, flashy way. Like, no one really has a bad thing to say about Emmett. I think as a viewer, it gets boring, but I think people were so drawn to him because he was just charismatic. Obviously not hard on the eyes either, which doesn't hurt. But I think that he also just had the physicality to back it up. And I think that he knew which were the most opportune targets on any given week. And yes, you can say there was a lot of, the competitions themselves were very leaning towards him and people like Jillian, people in his alliance. But that's because he deliberately made his alliance with people that could win those comps. John, on the other hand, yes, also super very charismatic. A lot of people love John. But as much as I will give him credit for learning the game, I do think that there is something to be said about already having like a bit of an innate ability for it, whereas John had to sort of like study a little bit. And that's okay. That's fine. He's still a great winner. But it makes me want to lean towards Emmett because I'm just like, he kind of already had the goods. And yes, he makes a fatal error in not getting rid of Tala. I think the season is definitely a lot different if Gary is gone again.
Well, he tried to get Gary. Gary won the veto in Final 5.
He did. I think I'm leaning towards Emmett. I think.
Of course you are.
Hey, Matt, it's up to you, man.
Damn. Look, I think it makes it a little less stressful knowing the system we have in place here, that we have good reason to believe that whoever loses this matchup should get a second chance to come back in. That's what the battle back vote is all about. That, as much of a tough decision, and I don't know, some people may say, well, then what's the point of, even doing this? Why are you having this matchup if it doesn't count? I mean, they may not get voted back in. We've had strong players, not make it back in. But to have future matchups just as tough, the later rounds of this are going to be insane. I'm just trying to make myself feel better about however way I'm going to vote here.
So what's your answer?
I'm really torn, as you were. I feel like JP made great arguments for John. Like if you're out there listening, you have a great advocate here on the panel. But it is also hard for me. It's also hard for me to kind of like forget, but just like not take into consideration how impressive Emmett's game is. And again, how he tried to get Gary out, even though, Gary came back in and he knew,
Oh
I
my
think, what his
God, I'm
end game
so
was.
slow. I just realized what JP just said when he said JP's my boy, not the initial alliance. I'm so upset.
John and I, our thing is he's big JP, and then he would always say, no, you're big JP. That's what we'd always go back and forth. We joke about it, but that's tying into my argument for him, though. I mean, he just has a way to connect with everybody, and so that piece with John, he's also way smarter than people give him credit for. I think because he's got the accent, he's from Newfoundland. I think some people kind of wrote that off with him, but he used that charm to help him. I mean, the guy's a professional poker player now. He did not have any background in that whatsoever. He just managed to figure it out. So I don't know. I think John's a special player. So is Emmett.
I wonder, when you take away these guys' partners, I wonder what John's game looks like in the long run without Netta by his side. Like, who is his partner if not Netta? Is it one of the guys? Is it Adele or is it Arlie? But like, how far does he go with Arlie? He already needed to cut Arlie when he did. How far can he go with him before Arlie makes the move first? Like, I feel like with him and Netta, he knew that they were like there was a mutual trust within the two of them of like, okay, if this is going to happen at all, it's not going to happen till the end game. I don't think he could have really ever banked on that with Arlie. Emmett, I feel like the final argument that I make for Emmett is that I think he could have done it without Jillian. I think he could do it in any season he plays without Jillian. But I think what you're making the point for John about is that, because of his personality, the natural charm and charisma he brings into a game, I think puts him ahead of Emmett. So which one do I value more as a player? Which one played a better game? They both played very good games.
Let's think about this a little bit further too, if we want to really flesh this out. So looking at them both physically, okay. John is a former junior hockey player, major junior, played at a very high level for the Rimouski Oceanic. He was a fighter. John's probably about 6'3", 230. Emmett is probably more. Emmett's about the same height as I am. He's probably 5'9", maybe, but he's bulky, so maybe 175, 180. Like he's also extremely fit as well. I actually think, in terms of competitions, and this isn't a slight against John, I think Emmett, if I were to pick a random competition, I would choose Emmett simply because I think his frame is more conducive to what some of these challenges and competitions are going to look like. Whereas John, not every competition is going to be built for somebody as large and strong as he is. So if you're needing a tiebreaker, Matt, I will give you, maybe something to think about for Emmett that could help him in a pinch. I have heard rumblings that some of the Big Brother competitions have become more physical in recent years.
Well, it was, and then it kind of got dialed back a little bit.
Okay.
BB26 did a lot of work to kind of work it back the other direction. So
okay,
but I'm gonna side with JP.
You're gonna go John. Okay,
I'm gonna send John through.
Okay, John's going through.
Truly, I mean it when I say, and I'm sure anybody that would have had to make this decision too can understand this is the hardest decision we've had to make thus far. Through however many episodes of this podcast. It's so razor thin close to me, and I'm sure we're gonna hear from patrons and listeners in general their argument as to either side of it. But when it's as close as it is, and one of these guys has the winner title, it's kind of just pushed me in that direction.
The win is definitely it gives you a lot of points. It really does. So I mean, I can't be too begrudged. That's the nature of the diary room. What can I say?
That's the nature of this randomized wheel. Anything could happen. Look, how afraid was I when I said, Emmett's up, we're gonna pull a name.
It's so crazy
That's
because,
what
like, again, I remember watching both of these seasons vividly, and I was like so anti-Emmett. I was like, get his ass out of here. And with John, I was like, yes, get rid of Netta, yes. And now I'm like so in on Emmett and not John. It's so crazy.
We might have to cancel this podcast before it gets to the later rounds, because that was too hard and that was round one. All right, let's give ourselves some time to sit with that one while we do work our way back to the wheel, and we still have 2 more players to pull, and we're already crazy spent a lot of time here. All right, pulling the wheel back up for 2 last names. Of course, we got to start with one. See if this can be any easier.
Please, yeah, because that was a lot.
All right, maybe not Jordan, but like BBCAN-3. Anything?
I would love BBCAN.
Just
Oh, so close to me. Oh,
I can't do this. What's with all the legends?
Wow.
This is an all-star season that we're forming here.
It is.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's keep the legendary BBCAN names rolling with Cassandra. Jesus Louise.
Yes. Cassandra Sahinfar. Such a fun name to say. All right. In BBCAN 4, Cassandra played a deceitful and cunning game by floating in the middle. She played a clean game until week 9 when she won HOH and decided to make a big move, evicting Jared. In week 10, she defied the odds and survived eviction against Joel. She was evicted the following week by Kelsey, placing 4th. She returned in BBCAN 5 and formed a not-so-secret alliance with Dallas, as well as Gary. A number of preseason alliances alongside her big reputation in the previous season made her a target. After the house almost flipped to evict Demetres, solely to detriment her game, Cassandra was nominated and targeted by Netta in week 3, despite trying to make amends with her and having fellow veteran Ika support. After a week of tough campaigning, she was unanimously voted out on an 11-0 vote.
We're gonna run out of legends here soon, but all right. Well, let's talk about Cass, a 2-time Big Brother Canada player, which is not something a lot of players can say. Either you were on BBCAN 5 and you're a 2-time player, or you're Anthony, or you're Victoria. Or recent 2-time players. Am I forgetting anybody? I don't know. But JP, this is again around the time you were podcasting pretty in detail about the show. So you watched both of Cass's runs. One where she made it pretty far, 4th place, right? Yep, the card's right there. 4th place, playing alongside Tim, those 2 chaos twins of the season, and ultimately losing out the game to Nick and Phil, Kelsey making the final 2 there, and then BBCAN 5 does not go as well for her, where she is also back with all these vets, but really like the least connected, the least liked, maybe you could say, of the vets. Just she wasn't clicking with a lot of those other people that had known each other for longer, or more of a core group of veterans in that house. It just didn't go as well. But BBCAN 4 is certainly the more historic run for Cass. JP.
Yeah, I think BBCAN 4 is more representative of her capabilities. She did not really have a shot in Big Brother Canada 5. Those first few seasons, 1, 2, 3, 4 as well, but less time for 4. There was so much intermingling, connecting, hanging out, parties, all these things. There's a lot of talk about how in the old days when Survivor first came out, that's sort of what the vibe was, and that kind of bled into All Stars a little bit. That's kind of how I feel a little bit with Big Brother Canada 5. Is I think just Cass was really popular coming off of season 4. She was the new all-star kind of player, and she had got a lot of hype. She had done really well, but she also didn't have as much time to connect with everybody. I also think having only a year off between seasons, it's really detrimental. I think you need more than a year to have the time to reflect, to be able to grow, to be able to understand fully what went wrong, what could go better, how you could improve. So anybody who's Anybody who claims she's not a good player because of what happened in 5, I think you can kind of forget about that. I will say, talking a little bit earlier about the field of opponents players were going against, I'm a little biased, but I do think towards the earlier seasons, but I do think that 4 was not an overly strong field of competition. Yes, Tim was in there, but other than that, are there any real heavy hitters? I don't know. So I would be curious to see how Cass would do on a season of stronger competition. I know it kind of contradicts what I just said about BBCAN 5, but if she were to have done her first time in one of those earlier seasons, it would have been really fascinating to watch. But overall, very strong player, did an excellent job that year. She was certainly my favorite to watch in Big Brother Canada 4. And unless we get another situation like we did in the last round, I think she will probably advance and go forward as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Amon, she is, and there's a lot that we can point to in her gameplay that I think is good. But I do want to, at least throw out there that she is a legend in Big Brother Canada, much more for her personality. And that might sound a little shady, but she, what she brought to the table for television was really, the worthwhile content that we got there. Her gameplay was good at times. She got some stuff done here and there. She did some she had some unconventional ways of getting what she wanted in the game, but a lot of them were the type of gameplay that you can't rely on in most seasons. And that's also, besides the fact that it's BBCAN 5 is returning players and whatnot, you see it in BBCAN 5 of like that it can't work every time playing like that.
Yeah, because definitely, I think that's a great way to put it. Definitely a character. BBCAN 4 is it's a bit of a hard slog for me because of all of the twists, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the brothers, and it's definitely an experience. I think that Cassandra is definitely a bright spot in that experience. But with that being said, I do think that she's definitely one of those players that doesn't do well without the people that she's working closely with, which Tim is definitely one of those people that really helped improve Cassandra's game. She's messy, she's super messy, which is fun to watch, but everybody was kind of on to her shit, and they were kind of over it too. Like, I'll never forget, when, was it Levita that nominated her after Levita had heard that, when Levita won HOH, Cassandra was like, oh, that dumb bitch won HOH. And she gets mad at Levita, and Levita's like, I heard what you said. And she's like, oh, because I called you a dumb bitch. It's like, yes, girl. Like, what did you think was going to happen? So she's just one of those people that just says whatever's on her mind. She doesn't care. She's really off the cuff with it. And it can be interesting in a game like that because sometimes people are more inclined to play with the enemies that they do know as opposed to the enemies that they don't. So I think that really helped with her game because it was just so out there in the open and a bit predictable. But I don't know if she does well without the people that are a little bit more strategically inclined. So definitely a fun person to watch, but a messy one at that.
I mean, she plays with Tim, who obviously rubs off on her in like a way of Tim plays very well but until he, quits the game. But he plays in such a chaotic way that it again rubbed off on Cass, where the two of them just became these chaos twins throughout the whole season. Where, I think to like the double eviction, I think when Cass was supposed to not use the veto on the brothers HOH, and then she ultimately does use the veto, and then the brothers want to nominate themselves. That's all because Cass lied to them and said she wasn't going to use it, and then she still does. Like things like that feel like it could just be something that she naturally brings to the game of like wanting to be as messy as that kind of is, but also influence from Tim of let's just not tell them that we're going to use the veto, and like just being silly and goofy and messy and having fun playing Big Brother. So as far as like a legend of the game again, somebody who is such a big character, so important to Big Brother Canada's history, this is a top tier pick in that regard. It will be tough if Cass gets an opponent here that is Dan Giesling. I don't know, but that happened last time too. So
We have not pulled a US player yet, have we?
I know it's about to be oops all BB can, and I'm not mad about it.
We have not
Okay.
pulled.
Okay.
Literally the last episode, we were like, oh, we'll have more BBCAN, in a couple of weeks, maybe in March, and then now here we are, just
Here we go.
doing it. Let's spin this wheel one last time today and find an opponent for Cass. I'm nervous again, but what can I do?
Oh,
Doesn't
who we
look like
got?
it's going to be Jordan
Oh!
Parhar, but
No.
it does look like it might be BBCAN 3.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Look at this.
Boy, my boy, Johnny.
Johnny, how do you say his last name?
Yay.
Colatrulli?
Johnny
Colatrulio.
Colatrulio.
There we go.
Yeah.
I love that.
BBCAN 3. Look at that.
There we
Yay!
go. We got some BBCAN-3. Let's go.
Is Johnny your eviction neighbor right before you? Or?
I think
Yes.
yes,
He
he
was.
was. Yes.
Hmm.
Johnny was right before me.
Well,
Mhm.
nobody better to talk about Johnny than somebody who
Oh.
played with him.
Johnny's a stud, like such a good player, somebody that I don't think really comes up much at all. Ironically, Johnny and Cass both from Manitoba, and they
Ooh.
both, I know, hung out a ton after BBCAN 4, and Johnny had nothing but amazing things to say about Cass. No, Johnny was so good strategically. He understood the game so well. He came in, I think Johnny had his birthday in the house. I want to say he was 28, turned 29. He was right in that kind of prime age. I feel like you want to be in to play Big Brother. He didn't look like a huge threat physically, but he did a ton of training ahead of time and did really, really well in a lot of those competitions. He did win the veto one time. I thought he was going to win the competition to come back into the game in that battle back. And in hindsight, it would have probably worked out. Maybe, well, actually, probably wouldn't have. But in terms of entertainment, I think if Johnny would have come back, I think he could have really done a ton of damage in the game. Socially, really well connected with everybody. I have nothing but amazing things to say about Johnny. I'm very biased towards, I'm naturally going to be more biased towards my cast, but Johnny is one of the people in particular that I am biased towards. And he is a guy that no matter who you are, like he has a connection with every single person on our cast, which you can, except for maybe like one or two that I can think of, that Johnny would openly tell you that he's not huge fans of, but he is genuinely such a nice guy, can connect with so many people. I think he deserved much better. And really, the person who ruined his game, I would say, was yours truly.
I thought you were going to say his Kevy Webby.
No, it and it came down to it and it didn't really show it a ton on the feeds. Like Johnny was working hard to rally the votes to stay in the game. And he came to me and said, hey, like, are you going to vote for me? And I just said, well, if you get the votes, that's fine. And all the people that were saying, if you get the votes, they were on board. It really was just me. And in hindsight, what would have been best for my game would have been to keep Johnny around. So I know him and I have joked about it a lot that, I ruined his game, but in hindsight, it ended up ruining my game. So it kind of, karma came back around. But I wish he would have gone further. He deserved it. He is such a student of the game, such a fan of the game, such a great guy. I have nothing but good things to say. And I think he's kind of moved on from Big Brother, but he's somebody who would have been really interesting to see play again.
Yeah, he was a very welcome presence on the season. Comes in as another super fan, just like you were, with a dog named Vito. Who could forget? It was his dog name was Vito.
Yep.
Yeah,
Vito. Yep.
Unfortunately, this is not the Kevin Martin poll here, the Kevin Martin segment, but one of the first of many victims of Kevin's incredible social game that is going to, Kevin says in BBCAN 3, BBCAN 5, that he leaves his morals at the door and he's going to use anybody in the game to get far. And while he makes genuine connections with people in there, including someone like a Johnny, it's not a permanent connection for him as far as the game is concerned. And Johnny is like really the first one to suffer the consequences of that, because I think Johnny, from my perception of it, JP, was that he seemed like he felt so safe, especially feeling like he had Kevin on his side. And then when Kevin's nowhere to be found in the final hours when Johnny needs him the most, he's like, wow, I really don't have, he gets evicted. He gets, I don't know if it was it a blindside? Do you remember?
No. Johnny knew at that point that he was going home. I think he had just kept hope alive for quite a while. But yeah, and again, it's my fault. I mean, if I would have said, "Hey, Kev, let's keep Johnny," Johnny would have stayed another week. So it could have been a lot different. Now I can't remember who was he nominated against. Was it?
He was against Sarah.
Oh, he was against Sarah. Yeah, and for me, like at the time, like I felt. And a testament to Sarah's game, I felt more connected to her at that point, and I felt like she was somebody that I could have worked with a little bit more down the road. Now, Cindy coming back and feeding her some information about what was really going on really nixed all of that. But no, I wanted Johnny out because I was scared of him. I just thought he could win any competition. He could outsmart me at any time. Strategically was really strong. That's why I didn't fight to save him, was because I was worried about what's this guy going to do if he gets to the end. He's probably going to win. And he was very popular. I think he's somebody that, if he got down to the final two, I think he could have surprised some people.
Yeah, for sure. Shall I read the blurb still?
Oh, we didn't do that.
I'm so sorry, man. I stepped on your toes.
No. I was just like, I just asked because I mean, I feel like we all kind of have things to say. I mean,
what does the official wiki blurb say about him?
Johnny quickly formed a bond with Kevin and Neha when the votes were publicly revealed during the instant eviction. His loyalty to Neha put a target on his back, which landed him in a position in the minority alliances of the House. When Bruno won HOH, he was targeted for eviction alongside his ally Sarah. In an effort to save himself, he campaigned for votes and tried to exploit Sarah's game despite staying on the block. He was unsuccessful and was the 5th house guest evicted from the house. And yeah, that's kind of what I remember the most about his game, was that, like, I remember Bruno being so gung-ho about getting Johnny out because he was like, you're the reason that Greg went home, you flipped on us, you're not loyal, this, that, and the third. And I liked that Johnny sort of like stuck up for himself. It was like, well, I'm playing my own game. I didn't feel like I was, as in with it as y'all were. He had to go. And clearly the wrong person won HOH after that.
Yeah.
It was always so bad to me that, like, I was like, well, Bruno, if you're that pissed off about Greg going home, then nominate Brittany. Like, what? But then again, he still nominated Sarah. So it's like, but I think that Johnny just had like the least amount of, connections with Bruno in that regard. So.
Yeah, I think too. I think Bruno is a very smart player. I think he also recognized the threat level with Johnny too, and that's why he wanted to get rid of him. But something that never came up in terms of the edited show was that Bruno won the double veto that week, so he had the ability to change both of his nominations. He strongly considered. We had just had a party. We were right before I was definitely feeling no pain. It was a good time. And when they announced that the double veto was happening, I was looking over at Zach like, whoa, what is happening? And Bruno was catching our eyes. Bruno told me after the fact he strongly considered taking Sarah and Johnny off the block in that moment and putting Zach and I up instead.
Why?
So yes. So he said that he felt like, yes, that's what he said. He said he felt like Zach and I, he was on to us and our alliance, and he felt like it would have bought a lot of favor with Sarah and Johnny. So who knows how close Bruno, who knows how close Bruno was to doing that? I mean, honestly, that might have been the best thing that could have happened to me in hindsight. But yeah, it was, that would have been super entertaining if that would have happened. It would have really changed things up.
Him and Sarah just did not see eye to eye, though. I can't imagine Sarah would have been like, okay, I like you now, Bruno.
This was before Sarah and Bruno really kind of went at it.
Okay.
So I think there was definitely tension left over from Greg and the residue of that whole situation. But I do think there was some wiggle room then. It was following Johnny's eviction. It was following some of the other things that took place where it really kind of took a nosedive and a tailspin. But there was a moment in there where Bruno was I think he would have been more open to doing something. So who knows?
Sure.
That could have
Okay.
saved Johnny. That could have flipped. I mean, that would have been something. I think if Johnny and Sarah and B would have teamed up with Bruno and the remnants of the Chop Shop and flipped on the showmances, that would have been interesting. But
Look,
unfortunately for all of you at home, you did not get that extremely entertaining moment, and we had to settle for some of the snooze fest that was Big Brother Canada 3.
No, I like Johnny a lot. I will obviously state my take that I'm glad that did not happen to you, so that you could, even though you didn't
Thank
get
you.
you didn't get to actually cast a jury vote, that you at least got to hang out in the jury portion of the game and be on our screens all the way through.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
If you got home any earlier, I don't know if everything, would have gone down exactly the same. You don't know how this goes,
Yeah,
so.
who knows? Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't have put on 20 pounds in the jury house, but it was that time the jury house is so fun in hindsight. So
One day you'll write a book.
I too am glad that it all worked out.
Yeah. All right. Well, JP, let me turn to you first here. Johnny is, in fact, your boy. He's up here in this matchup against Cass from BBCAN 4 and 5. Only one of these players can go through to the next round. You're allowed to be biased. What are you thinking?
I vote to evict Cassandra.
Oh, I thought that might happen.
Yeah. Johnny
bias
is
or not?
Johnny, bias or not, Johnny is if we're putting them in a random season, Johnny is a better player. Johnny is, give him at 100 shots, he's going to make the jury, I would say, probably 65-70% of the time. Good chance he wins some of those times. He's a great player. I think he got sat on a season with a bunch of super fans, and I think that probably wasn't the best draw for him. If he was in more of a standard type of season, like if you switch the roles, if you put him in Big Brother Canada 4 and you put Cass in Big Brother Canada 3, I think we're talking about these players in a much different manner. I know Mitch was there in BBCAN 4. He's a very good player, but
so maybe Johnny gets screwed in BBCAN 4 instead of Mitch.
Maybe, I don't know, but Johnny's good. He's such a good player. Nobody talks about him, so I'm glad I can stand on the pedestal and cheer for my boy. I understand I'm probably going to lose this vote, but my vote is for Cass to be evicted.
Yeah, before Amon does anything scary, I'm going to cast a vote for Cass. Well, you put the tie breaking on me last time, and if there's going to be a tie break this time, it's not going to be on me again. So I'm jumping in here first to put a vote on Cass. I appreciate everything that JP's bringing to the table for Johnny, because he's a player who, all that we saw on the edited episode, and I'm sure he's probably not thrilled with this in the long run.
He's not.
Was all just Kevy Wevy. I love Kevin. Kevin's great. And I know there was more going on. I was watching the feeds.
Way more.
Yeah. So I know there was more, from the edited episodes besides the Kevin stuff. It was also just kind of like, oh, he only has Sarah, Brittany, and Neha and nothing else. So I feel like there could have been potential there, but I do see a little bit more value in the unconventional game that Cass plays. And while I don't think it works out for her, maybe even more than 50% of the time, I do think that the 50% of the time that it does work, it is such a strong style, or such a bold way of playing. And on top of the fact that she is, again, just a legend of the game, that is certainly factoring into my decision making here. So it is going to be a tie going to Amon's vote, with one on Cass and one on Johnny. So Amon, the floor is yours.
Okay. It is such a treat to have someone that actually played with one of these players here to talk about it. And I feel like that type of insight has to hold a little bit more weight than someone who's just observing. But I'm also of the opinion that, Cass really did play a bit of a dynamic, interesting, fun, legendary game. Is it something that's repeatable? No, and we have empirical evidence of that because they brought her ass back the next season, and what happened? So I think I have to do what you did last time, Matt, and I have to go with JP. I'm giving it to Johnny.
All right, let's go. I'm on.
That's not
Thank
what I
you.
thought you were going to say.
I'm shocked. I was like, oh, it's okay. Nobody's gonna side with me. It's gonna sound crazy, but thank you, Amon. I appreciate it. I feel like, you're just trying to be nice, which I appreciate. So thank you very much. Being kind to the
but
guests.
no, but it's a little bit of that, but it's also I mean, maybe it's a little bit of my own bias also popping in. Like, I wasn't the biggest Cass fan in BBCAN 4. I really wasn't. I felt like she was very grating, very annoying. I felt that she got away with a lot more than she should have. And I think that she was a useful tool for a lot of other people. And that to me doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at Big Brother. It means that you have a lot of lease on life in the game. But and would she have won had she gotten to the end? Probably. But I think that has more to do with Kelsey having already been evicted, and the fact that Nick and Phil are paying as one, which is a huge advantage. So I don't know. I think that Cass is fun. I think she's great. Is she a great Big Brother player? No. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people saying in the comments like, oh, well, you wanted Janelle to go through and she's a legend, but she's also not great at the game. So why'd you vote for Janelle? Because it's Janelle and Cass is Cass. And that's all I got to say.
I think you learned nothing from your Jessica Milagros eviction vote. And this might even bite you in the butt 10 times harder. I think there's more Cass stands that are going to come for you for this one. And that's on you.
It. I will bathe in your blood. Come for me, baby. Come for me.
And, I can't even confidently tell you that maybe there's a chance she comes back. Well, I certainly can. There's going to be a lot of voters for her with this next battle
Emmett
back,
and Emmett both being in there and Cass, that'll be very interesting for sure. So
this is insane. What an ending. I was prepared to tell you, JP, that you were the first guest who's ever been outvoted because I thought Amon was going to vote for Cass, and I think that would have been the case. I don't think Amon and I have ever agreed and been opposed to the guest vote, so would have been a first.
Wow. Okay.
But that's not the case because to recap today, we did just send Johnny from BBCAN 3 through to the next round, evicting BBCAN 4 and 5. BBCAN legend Cassandra. Wow. Amon made just like half of the BBCAN 5 cast and sent Cass packing, more than half of the cast. And then, of course, to go back, we had the truly the toughest matchup I think we've ever had. John Party advanced to the next round over Emmett from BBCAN 1. This episode is going to cause riots in some capacity, and that's okay. And then the first matchup, of course, was it was all BBCAN today. We had, who the hell did we have? We had Danielle Alexander was evicted from BBCAN 1 in favor of another BBCAN 5 player, Demetres, went on to the next round. So that's what we did today. Jordan, how do you feel about all of it?
Oh, it's been so much fun. Thank you guys for having me. This is such a fun podcast idea. I am so honored to be here. I feel so grateful that we only got BBCAN players when you had me on. I just feel like it was meant to be.
Yes.
First time I think got close. I think we've had episodes with 4 out of 6 picks being BBCAN.
There was a couple in there. It was like just this much. Yeah.
But 6 out of 6, certainly a first, and happy to have you here for it because truly can't think of anyone better to go through that with, and always great to talk to you. Always great to hear you back behind a microphone. It feels like home. So
yes, and I will add, like, for those of you that, because I know there might be a few of our listeners and watchers or whatever that aren't like the biggest BBCAN aficionados, maybe haven't seen a season, maybe seen a couple of seasons. If you have not watched BBCAN, please watch it. Watch BBCAN. Start with BBCAN 3. Start with JP's season and witness the history.
Wait, JP, that take? I don't think he does.
I mean, look. I would say start with it. Normally I would say start with BBCAN 2, but because JP is here, I'm also going to advocate for his season. I think BBCAN is some of the best BB that there is. Just like point blank period. So if this is like your first time, having a bit of a foray into Big Brother Canada with all of the Big Brother Canada players that we have talked about today, don't stop here. Continue on the journey. It's such a good ride. Such a good ride.
So there we go. JP, again, pleasure to have you back here, or pleasure to have you back behind the microphone, I should say. Always great to chat. And I don't imagine you're going to be telling people exactly where to follow you online, because that's not really your thing these days. But anything you want to throw out there at this time?
No, I just want to say thank you guys both so much for having me. Aman, thank you for the kind words. I disagree. If you want to watch Big Brother Canada, you've never seen it, maybe don't start with season 3 because it's a little slow at times. BBCAN 2, BBCAN 5, is maybe save 5. I don't know. Maybe watch BBCAN 2, see if you like it, then go from there.
You need to
then
build
go
up to 5. I feel
yeah,
like 5 is
then
the reward, you know?
yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, you guys are doing a great thing. This is so fun. It's been awesome, and it's nice to know that my microphone still works and I can still do this thing. And I would just say, yes, you don't need to. I'm not looking for anybody to follow me on any social media platforms, but I will say, if you have not already, please leave Matt and Aman a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. Maybe leave a thumbs up or a comment on this video. Let them know what you think, and keep checking these guys out. They're doing great work. So I'm just so pleased to have been a part of it. And who knows, maybe we can do this again together someday.
I certainly hope so. We'll be doing this for a little while. So, I know where to find you. So that's that. Thank you, of course, JP, for coming on with us. For myself, check me out over on the Free Agents podcast with Brian Scally, talking all things The Challenge and The Traders, which is about, has begun as of when you are listening to this. So Traders season 3 is probably so much fun already. And we're covering that over there. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/The Diary Room. You're gonna want to get over there if you want to cast some votes for this battle back. If you're an Emmett person, if you're a Cass person, and you want to see them get some votes to re-enter the competition now that they have been eliminated to get to round 2, they're gonna need your support. You can also cast a vote for a player who has not yet come up, and Emmett and Cass could have used an extra vote on their names today. Cass, especially if she had that one extra vote, she would have gone through because the patron vote breaks the tie. So that's that. But yeah, check us out over there, patreon.com/The Diary Room. I think that's about it. Subscribe. Everything JP said. He still remembers how to close out a podcast. So take all of his advice. Aman is covering Drag Race. Of course, the season has begun, so check that out. And all of our socials are down in the description, so you can find that all there. Aman, unless you have anything else, get us out of here.
Our thanks to the great Jordan Parhar once again for joining us. And until next time, guys, please go to the diary room.